Okay, on to the second segment, and I think actually we're gonna get into this a little later, but people, we'll get into it later. It's fine. This is the fun question segment, and
Okay.
it begs to differ whether this is actually gonna be fun. But favorite hero in Dota, go.
Favorite to play, probably Magnus. I like Magnus a lot.
You
Um,
disgust me. Unbelievable. You know how many clips we get in the top 10 for these terrible Magnus plays? I'm just kind of biased. I'm sorry.
well, but he's just so fun, man.
Oh, he's fun,
There's
yeah.
no feeling like a nice blink skewer, especially when you're playing with your buddies. Like,
Yeah.
it's one thing, especially guys like us, me and you, and I'm sure most of the Dotacinema staff. Like, if we want, we can harass the pro players we know, and they'll bring us into a game and put up with us, sucking it up and all that.
Yeah.
But like when you're playing with your buddies and it's like you're trying to crack the base, you're trying to crack the tier threes, and you blink up and skewer someone out and get the kill, and that allows you to take the racks, dude. You just want to dust your shoulders off, do the
You feel like a pro temporarily, essentially.
exactly, and he's a very easy hero for that. I've been playing a lot of Shadow Demon too, though, lately. I like Shadow Demon. I feel like Shadow Demon is a hard counter to almost every hero that everyone hates, and I wish people would learn that. Like, you
Yeah.
hate Lifestealer, you think he's picked too much, pick Shadow Demon, Demonic Purge, GG Lifestealer. And you could do that to Phantom Lancer to create your own little army of illusions. Do it to Anti-Mage to harass him to death in lane if he puts a point into mana break. Like, he's just such a good hero. But, people would rather complain about other heroes, I guess.
Okay, so favorite hero onto, and I don't. You said you didn't play original Dota, so I don't even know. You should know a little bit about this if you read Cyborg Matt's blog. Are you excited for any particular hero to come into Captain's mode, whether they're in the game itself right now, but they're just not in Captain's mode, or have yet to be released? Is there any hero that you think would be cool to play, or even just cast, I guess?
The one I'm really waiting on, and you're going to have to give me his updated name. I actually looked it up before our interview, and I've already forgotten it. But just based on being a broadcaster, the one that entices me the most, I think, is Taran Chieftain.
Yep.
Well, what's his name?
Elder Titan.
Elder Titan. That's it.
Right.
And I'll tell you why. Just the way that things are right now with the metagame, and everything's really predicated on the ability to either fight or defend fights early. You don't see a whole lot of 4 Protect 1 anymore. About the only time you see really dedicated 4 Protect 1 strategies is whenever you're up against a Wisp combination, and the best way to deal with that is just to outfarm the CK and give the other team no openings to use relocate to get ganks off. So you'll see a lot of 4 Protect 1 then, but it makes sense in that context. But a lot of where the metagame is right now is based on the strength of your level 6 composition, how much map control you can get between 15 minutes and 25 minutes, your ability to take fights under enemy towers or to react and take a fight whenever the enemy's pushing under your own tower. And I think with the initiation range with his ultimate, I think that's a really neat wrinkle that's going to go into a lot of this. And it's going to make, I think it's going to put the brakes on a lot of super heavy push-oriented lineups. Could be totally wrong. Again, I haven't seen him, but I didn't play Dota 1, so I obviously have no sense of context. But just looking at his skill set and especially the strength of his ultimate, I think he's a great anchor hero that is going to be earning first picks and first bans in a lot of different lineups, I think.
See, I remember when he came out initially in Dota 1, and I really liked him a lot, but he's just really tough to use. I mean, obviously on a competitive level, it's going to be completely different, but on a pub level,
Right.
very tough to use his, I don't even know the name of it, the illusion thing where it mirrors yourself. It's very tough to use, but can be very powerful, like you said, in good hands. I'm looking forward to Legion Commander. Do you know anything about that hero?
Nothing at all.
All right, so I actually never actually played him. I think I quit when Dota 1 when Ancient Apparition came out. So any heroes after that I haven't played unless they're in Dota 2 now. Legion
Right.
Commander's ultimate. Just picture this. You say, I duel you. It's a single target skill. You click an enemy, you duel them. They're forced to duel you. If you kill them, you gain 10 damage for the rest of the game.
That's pretty awesome, actually.
Tell me that's not amazing, honestly.
That is pretty awesome. That is pretty awesome.
Apparently he's rigged, so we might have to wait a bit for that to be in competitive play, but looking forward to him nonetheless. Okay, so moving on. Announcer pack. Everybody's been begging for it. Your voice is God, obviously, so it just makes sense for it to be in the game. Any plans for that or anything like that?
Yes, there are plans for that, and I've hinted around at it. I don't. I'm a big believer in under promise, over deliver. So I haven't promised anything, or I certainly haven't set out a timeline or anything like that. But Right now, I just invested in some more voiceover specific equipment, which I'm actually using right now. So hopefully my voice sounds good.
Sexy.
But with that and with another project that I can't talk about, at least not right now, involving me doing some voiceover work, I am comfortable to say that, yes, I am beginning work on an announcer pack. I do have some other things that I have to focus on right now, but I was recently able to have a video conference with Valve directly and to get my hands on some resources that I felt were necessary for me to actually turn out a high quality announcer pack. I didn't want to do a cookie cutter one that only had like 100 lines. If I'm going to do one, it's probably going to have 1,000 lines, maybe not 1,000. It'll have a bunch.
10,000.
10,000
one for each viewer you get.
Every possible username in Dota, every name that is registered, that's right. A guaranteed one line for that. But yeah, I am going to begin work on that. I'm in the middle of a transition phase in my life right now. In another context, I can't really get into details about that, but all of that I should be able to talk about publicly very, very soon, hopefully in the next week or two, heading towards May. And that's going to have a big impact on when I can turn things like these out. But there's a lot of news that's going to be coming out of myself and revolving around the D2L and so forth in the next week or two. So you guys make sure you stay tuned.
Awesome. Actually, my experience with announcer packs in general, and people don't realize this until it comes out, and I have experience with Han and now Dota 2. Typically, casters, people ask for announcer packs all the time, but they don't really know what they're getting into with that as far as...
Right.
Now if I came out with an announcer pack, just me, it would be terrible. Like whether people think it would be good or not, it would be terrible. If Toby or LD or anybody came out with an announcer pack, they would also be terrible, I guarantee you. But you are the anomaly, my good sir. Your voice would be perfect for an announcer pack, regardless of whether you're a caster or not. So I highly suggest you do that. I will purchase it myself with my very Jewish money, so maybe that's some incentive for you.
Hey, I will take your 2 cents on the dollar, whatever the split rate is. But to be honest, that's still something I'm open to, by the way. So anyone who happens to hear this, and chances are I'm going to put out a preliminary test video, that showcases the direction I'm going. Please let me know what you'd like to hear in it, because the big question is, what approach do I take? Am I Ayesee, the smarmy commentator who just says the obvious stuff and then cracks jokes, or do you want me to sound like I do when I cast? Do you want me to gear it to set the triggers up so it sounds like I'm actually casting the game you're in? That takes a lot more work. It's something I'm willing to do. But like you said, it's whenever you say, oh, you want an announcer pack, that's great. But, that's only one very small dimension of what actually goes into it. I have to decide the flavor of it. I have to decide if it's going to be humor focused. Is it going to be super serious focused? Is it going to be me trying something different or maybe trying to mix the two and all that? And I would absolutely love to have any feedback I can get on that.
All right, last question for the fun question section. Are you a freelancer or are you part of a studio?
I currently am a full-time employee of Evil Geniuses, and but that doesn't mean that I can't do what I want. And of course, I'm not going to get into my contract, the details of my contract. I'm actually in the process of renegotiating a longer-term contract with Evil Geniuses, but generally speaking, EG is really, really awesome. I mean, that's speaking in general, but especially on this one topic. They are really, really cool. So long as I don't sign myself up or overbook myself with anything that conflicts with my promised obligations to them, they don't care what I do. They don't, I'm in the process of looking to begin full-time voice work with another major European organization where I'll be doing voiceovers for videos for them. Hopefully, if we can make everything work out so far as their budget and my time availability. And I'm not going to drop a name, but I'm sure most of you can figure out who it is if
Microsoft.
you think about it. Obviously, their European division. But so, I'm able to do that. I'm able to do basically anything I want so long as, and this is something I have no problem with, making sure that Evil Genius is the D2L and my obligations to those two names remain first and foremost. So, could I start running the name EG/AC or EG.AC? I could, but that's not the style that that's not the approach that I take. And this again comes back to my background. Whenever, I don't know if you listen to ESPN radio or anything like that, whenever you hear Colin Cowherd or Scott Van Pelt, you're going to associate them with ESPN because that's where they've been forever. But that doesn't mean that they are 100% beholden to ESPN. ESPN is their employer. And but that doesn't mean that they can't do voiceover work for commercials if ESPN permits it or if it's not outlawed by their contract. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's where I am. I serve at the pleasure of Evil Geniuses, and am honored every day to be a part of, again, in my opinion, the Yankees of esports, to be a part of the biggest and best esports organization on the planet. And they prove that to me every day. The commitment that they've shown to me on a personal level, the fact that they're willing to give me a try after the international, even though I was still looking to really establish myself, they've done nothing but right by me. And I plan to be with Evil Geniuses as long as they'll have me.
You should probably tell them who Dotacinema is, because they're the only organization we've gone to who doesn't know who we are. And I find that
Really?
odd, considering that they have a house that's literally 15 minutes away from me. Isn't that weird?
That, yeah.
It's really weird.
When did you go to them that they didn't know who you were?
Oh, it's too long of a story. Let's not do that. Let's not do that.
Okay.
All right.
Fair.
So, on to the community questions.
All right.
Number one, this is from Vintage Tech. Who is your
Okay.
personal favorite competitive team?
You know, that's such a hard question to answer because I like things about every team. And and again, that sounds like a cop-out.
It does. It really does, AC.
I know it does. But here's the thing, like, obviously I have to have I'd be lying if I said I didn't root for EG every time they play. Except when I broadcast them. And this comes with, again, the territory. I broadcasted baseball, football, and basketball whenever I was in radio. And, and it was mostly local or statewide sports. It wasn't like, at the Division I collegiate level, or certainly not professional level. But in situations like that, I always had a rooting interest. But after a while, you learn to turn that off. So, yes, whenever I see Evil Geniuses play any team, am I rooting for Evil Geniuses? Yeah, they're kind of my employer.
Right.
But, and I have a vested stake in them. And that extends to Liquid as well, though. I love Liquid as an organization. I love the guys on Liquid. Bulba was the first major player that I ever got to know in Dota 2. So any team he's ever on, I have a rooting interest in. Dignitas, same thing. I love those guys. I probably talk to Dignitas players probably more, or at least their manager probably more than almost anyone at the professional level, outside of maybe a Loda. I talk to Loda and to Poppy a lot. But, I love those teams because there's a North American connection. I think that's okay. I don't think that I've been accused of being biased for and against all three of those teams at one point or another.
Same.
So to me, that tells me I'm doing my job. But then you go across and, I love Mouse as an organization. I feel like the tenacity that they've shown, given the losses that they've suffered over the last year and the way that they've been able to remain a top-tier competitive team despite losing Kuroki, despite losing Sing Sing and all that they went through with that. I feel, that is so admirable. Navi is just about as good as it gets in the European scene. I love Zero, their CEO. Working with them, doing voiceover for them and all that has been a lot of fun. I hope to do a lot more of it in the future. And of course, they're one of the more charismatic and in terms of star power, in terms of name power, they have all that. And they're just a fun team to watch and to broadcast. And I could say something about this about almost every single top team. I mean, there's Alliance. I know Loda really well. I know Kelly, his girlfriend, really well. So I have a personal connection via that. I like the rest of the team. I'm a bit of an Admiral Bulldog fanboy to begin with because I think he just is he's awesome at what he does, even though it's a very specific role he tends to play. And I could say this for every team. Like, I'm going to go ahead and blatantly rip off something that Colin Cowherd said on his ESPN show. The difference between people who work in an industry involving competition and people who are viewers and spectators tends to be how easily you can remove the emotion from it. Mm-hmm. And, yes, when I broadcast, do I get excited? Absolutely. But I don't get excited because it's a specific team or a specific player. I get excited because what I'm seeing is exciting. And to be honest, a lot of it has to do with when I get excited, I'm excited because I know what I'm broadcasting is going to make everyone at home excited. So that excites me. That's when my voice goes up and I get loud. So whenever I'm broadcasting, there may as well not be names of the teams on there. The players' names, that's all well and good. But, it's all about the product. It's all about delivering something that is going to justify the viewer's investment into my stream and into the tournament. So long as I'm doing that, I don't care who's playing well. I really don't. And again, I love EG. They're the organization that I work for and all that. But I'll tell you, they've been playing awful lately. I mean, they've had some up and down times. They've had some decent wins, but they've had some really ugly games too. And I'll tell you that right now outside of a game, and I'll tell you the same thing whenever I'm getting ready to broadcast them and we're going into the draft and I have to give an evaluation of where they stand as a team at that given moment. And if I was doing that for them right now, I would say, you know what? EG got some major problems they got to fix. And that's all about taking the emotion out of it and being a professional instead of being a spectator.
Okay, so you named about 12 or 13 teams there. For this next question, you're going to need to narrow it down to 3 with this guy's question.
Okay.
So this is from Hinch. Which 3 teams do you see getting into the top 3 at TI3 based on their current strength? Which I'm assuming is going to be mostly Asian.
Yep. See, this is a question that's more along my lines because I can look at this objectively and give you an answer that doesn't have anything to do about me, knowing Loaded and his girlfriend or my geographic location. The 3 teams that I honestly think are going to go the deepest at the international, probably, IG, there's, I'm not saying anything controversial there. I think LGD International is going to stun the world. I think LGD International, if I had to pick a team that's not IG that I think has the potential to make a deep run and maybe even win the whole damn thing, it's LGD International. I also think that Zenith has potential. I really like the way Zenith has been playing. When Zenith is another one of those teams that when everything works and everything, they remind me of Empire about 3 months ago. And, granted, I don't mean that in pure talent level because I believe that, Empire was good, but they weren't as good as, Zenith is now. But their play style, whenever they get it all together and whenever they peak and their game plan comes together the right way, they just run people over. They just run them over. And that kind of dominance, especially when you're talking about their play in the Asian scene, they're not doing that to as much as I like them, as much as I like Eternal Envy, they're not doing that to Kaipi, a team that's looking to get its legs underneath it. They're not doing that to an Evil Geniuses squad who is having some struggles here and there. They're doing this to major organizations that are expected to potentially win the international. And whenever they have a good draft and they get it all together, they look so impressive to me. So, again, IG it's a lock in most people's minds. I would be stunned to being breathless if IG didn't at least make it to the loser bracket finals. If they didn't at least make it that deep, I would be completely just aghast. LGD International, I feel like has more potential than their Chinese counterparts. I feel like they have a lot wider range of what they can excel at, and I really like their play style, but LGD China is excellent as well. But if I had to pick a sleeper, a team that I think can go deep, if not win the whole thing, at least go deep, so long as they peak at the right time, so long as they stay stable, and starting in the next month or 2, they take the time to just work out all the little kinks in their play, I think Zenith has potential to go pretty deep.
All righty. Next question from Wichem. If you could lend your voice to one of the Dota 2 heroes the current heroes, which one would it be?
That's a tough question. I like Magnus. Earthshaker. Echo Slam.
There you go.
But, I don't know. Let me think. Magnus. Magnus. I think Magnus is pretty well voiced. I'm trying to think of heroes that need some work. I don't really like Viper's voice, to be honest with you.
Can you
like
do a Viper voice though?
I don't know that I can. He would just have to be a baritone Viper.
That would be have weird. Yeah, I couldn't picture him as a baritone.
Dragon Knight's awesome, but the guy who did the voice acting for Dragon Knight's just fantastic.
Yeah, he was in the what movie was that? Final Destination. Yep. The creepy guy.
Exactly. So Earthshaker's probably a good one. I like Earthshaker's voice acting a lot though. Tide Hunter. I'd probably be a good Tide Hunter. I think I could do some good Tide, but
his lines are so good already, that's the problem.
How do you beat Duke Nukem though? You can't beat Duke Nukem, just can't be done. So let me think of an actual legit answer instead of hedging my bets.
You could do Legion Commander. Legion Commander's gonna be a woman. You can do that, right?
Yeah, obviously. I actually can get pretty high up whenever I try. Really? I have to go falsetto, but it sounds awful. Something generic, something that's an actual answer though. I don't know. Let's say we'll stick with Earthshaker. I'll just I'll be the little guy running around with the totem on his back. I'm down with that.
Fair enough. Next question from Loafbone. When will you be streaming in 1080p? 720p kills my eyes on my 27-inch, which I completely disagree with, but I'll let you answer first before I follow that up.
I'll be honest with you. That's probably the biggest frustration I've had in the last 6 to 12 months, and it's gotten especially worse over the last couple of going back to probably December, January. it's just one of those things you can't do a whole lot about. I am constrained by some really unfortunate ISP issues. It's just a product of the geography. I love where I live. I live in rural West Virginia, live in southern West Virginia, but not exactly known as the bustling metropolis and capital of technology and development that some other cities are known for. So obviously our internet, not the best here. I can't get into specifics right now just because it is still being worked out, but it will be a non-issue soon. One way or the other, there are a couple of options on the table. One way or the other, I will not be beholden to this crappy internet connection for much more than a couple more weeks, I'm hoping. So at that point, I'll be bringing you 1080p as crystal clear as I possibly can, I promise.
Now, do you stream at 30 FPS?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay,
yeah,
so I do have to say something about this. I think it's better, like once you get a better connection, and I don't know if your computer needs to be upgraded, but I think it's way better to do 720, 60 FPS as opposed to 1080p. Because it just looks a million times smoother. It's just the way it is.
Right.
And it also incentivizes people that want to watch in 1080p to just buy a ticket and watch it in game, because there's not going to be that big of a difference. So I would recommend, and not that it means a lot coming from me, although I've done research on this, so this is actually something I'm very, God, it sounds so stupid, very passionate about. 720p, 60 FPS is the way to go, in my opinion.
If I was going to take advice from anyone, man, I think I would take it from the foremost authority on Dota-related videos in the community. I'm pretty sure your advice is valid and comes from a source worth trusting. So it's something I'll definitely consider. And again, I wish I could talk a bit more about it. I'm super excited for the next couple of weeks, especially if one of the potential eventualities pans out, which I think it's going to, but yeah, like, you can read between the lines, guys. I my computer's fine, by the way. It's not an issue with that. It is totally on the ISP, but everything should be getting better. Well, we'll leave it there. It's everything you can feasibly imagine outside of my sound quality, because I'm really happy with where that is right now. But everything but that should be improving substantially in the next, say, 3 to 6 weeks, give or take.
Awesome. Can't wait. I bet a lot of people are going to be looking forward to that as well. All right, last community question from J8SADM632B. I'd love to know the story behind that horrendous name. What is the hardest thing about casting that people probably don't realize, which I can attest to the pains as well back in the day. So
there are a lot of things that, it's tempting to make it a pity party thing. It's like, oh, people are so mean. They really are, though.
Yeah, they
people
are.
really are just so mean. But nah. In all honesty, getting started, like this was, I'll just relay it this way. And this was my experience. Whenever you're a new caster and you're trying to get known, but you're not known at all, no one really cares. Like you get some nice comments, you get some dick comments, but for the most part, it's very neutral. It's very, hey, good games. See you tomorrow. Whatever. There is this really unpleasant valley. It's like the uncanny valley, except it's for how you get supported. I was thankfully got through it okay, but you reach a certain point where you're known, but you're not really respected within the community yet. You're just a new name that everyone's trying to figure out who you are. That is when things get real tough. In terms of just having some awful things said about you, some awful things, tweeted at you, the way people react to you. And, like I saw a video, I can't remember who, actually, I think I know what video it was. It was the video announcing your VOD section, Dotacinema's VOD section. And, you linked it to me. And it just so happened when you linked it to me, one of the comments, most recent, it wasn't very highly upvoted or anything, at least I hope not, but was I effing hate AC. Like, that's all the comment said. And here's the thing, like, okay, if you don't like me as a broadcaster, I totally get that. I really do. And I'm not for everyone. And I've noticed that the American viewers tend to be a little bit more receptive to me because I sound like an American broadcaster. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And, that's my training. It's what I want to do. So if you don't enjoy it, I'm very sorry. I hope I can shore up whatever differences, whatever weaknesses I have and have you back. But like, I can't understand the mindset of someone who like makes it a personal thing like that. You know what I mean? And it seems like those kind of people come out of the woodwork whenever you're just beginning to get recognized in a public space like this. And that is really hard. And I think you can talk to, I can't even imagine poor Sheaver. Sheaver she works so hard, busts her butt, man. not just for herself, but for a variety of other people. She's so helpful. Anytime you need anything, if she's available, she will help you. But some of the things that were said and are still said about her, it really does bother me just because I know how hard it is to be a female in that job, in this space.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm not saying the whole community is like sexist or anything, but, we all know those people are out there. And it does get to a point where you have to just stop reading. You just have to stop looking for your name. And that's kind of where I got to with it. And like on Reddit, for example, I haven't had a hate thread about me on Reddit in a while. But, even the ones that are positive, I tend to just send a private message to the person who makes them and say, thank you for being so kind. And then I don't read it anymore. And it's just much easier to focus on the actual work. Mm-hmm. And focus on exactly what's going on.
Well, I stopped reading YouTube comments months ago.
Yeah, you have to. And again, and what's unfortunate is the vast majority of people are so nice and so kind.
It's just the couple negative ones that stick with you, though.
Yep. It really does sound petty, but I think most of us can agree is if I read 10 positive and 2 negative, the 2 negative are the ones I'm thinking about 3 hours later.
Yep.
And whenever your whole professional life is kind of bottled up that way, you just have to take time away from it. But that's actually a lot harder than I think people will give it credit for. It's real easy to sit back and go, well, if I was a broadcaster and getting paid to do Dota 2, I wouldn't care what anyone said. But it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way at all. You care a lot, and with me, I've gushed about how much I care about the viewers. I'm not going to do that, but it's impossible for me to care about my viewership and not care whenever someone says something bad. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like you can't have one or the. You have to pick one or the other. You can't care a whole lot when you're broadcasting at 10 in the morning, and then when you read a Reddit thread 2 hours later, just go, well, those viewers hate me, but that doesn't bother me. All I want to care about is the people who love me. Like, you want to deliver a good product to everyone, and especially when you decide to make this your profession, your livelihood, to make this your profession. Mm-hmm. You care a whole lot about delivering a high-quality product to everyone, not just 95%. You want to make sure everyone, 100%, enjoy what you do. Probably the other thing is it is really hard to find a consistent situation in terms of doing this professionally. And, I don't know, and it's just common courtesy. Most casters don't talk about each other's financial situations. I don't think I've ever been asked about mine by anyone.
I get asked all the time. Are you kidding me?
I never get asked.
Jesus. It's the weirdest thing. Like, you don't ask somebody that in public.
Right. Well, it's everyone's situation is different, but the hardest thing and what I wanted more than anything in the world was stability. To actually have a chance to predict my budget month to month. You know what I mean? And That sounds like so petty, but that's the unfortunate truth of this industry is how much you make month to month, especially if you're based on YouTube income or stream income. That really fluctuates, and you can be crippled by a tournament being canceled. You can be crippled by like let's say whenever I only had one broadcast quality microphone that I had access to. If my mic goes out, what the hell do I do? What if my internet goes out for a week? How do you react to that? But again, it's one of the reasons I'm so thankful to Evil Geniuses is I'm now in a situation where I'm aside from other incentives and other revenue streams, I'm on a monthly salary. And
that's a perfect situation. I mean, people ask me all the time how much we make, and they just assume we make a lot. People don't realize that esports, for the people that are casting or even in YouTube, don't really make that much, especially when, like in Dota, the viewers are from specific countries that don't generate a lot of money. So they just look at how many subscribers we have and like, oh, you guys must be rich, and that's far. I mean, we're probably not even top 10 as far as how much money we make compared to other organizations. But even them, they're not making that much. So stability, like you're saying, is utmost importance for people in our position for sure.
Mm-hmm. And that was my big moment of happiness, and it allows me to do things like I've done just recently. Like, I wanted to do more voiceover work. Now that I have that stability and I'm looking ahead, I'm secure not just for the next 2 weeks, but for the next 12 months. I can do stuff like spend a lot of money to get a very good, high quality, true voiceover mic as opposed to a broadcast headset, which was the last major purchase I made. And that really is the hardest part of working in esports in any kind of a way. It doesn't matter if you're a tournament admin, if you're a writer, is finding that comfort zone. And that is so difficult. And I'm one of the very, very few fortunate enough to find himself in that position and to be making, good money. I'm very happy, very comfortable right now.
Well deserved. Okay. Ayesee, final question tonight, good sir. It's probably the most important, and the entire interview will go to garbage if you don't answer it correctly.
All right.
Cake or pie?
Pie. Gotta be pie.
I figured
Has
you'd
to
say
be.
that. I figured you'd say that.
Well, here's the thing. Cake is very one-dimensional. You get cake, it's a chocolate cake, vanilla cake. Yeah, you can put coconut on it. But when you get into pies, man, you got pizza pie. You can make a cookie pie. You can make key lime pie. You can make peanut butter pie. Oh my God, you ever had peanut butter pie, man? Like homemade
No.
peanut butter pie. Oh my God. Yeah, like so
Is
when
it
you
just
get into
peanut butter? I'm just
No,
picturing
man.
peanut butter just. I don't know.
No, I mean there are different kinds. It's mostly
Okay.
like whipped peanut butter, so it's real light and fluffy, and you can drizzle whatever you want on it. Like what you'll have sometimes is like chocolate sauce and peanut butter that's really well whipped, so it's super light and fluffy, like almost like whipped cream, but it's chocolate and peanut butter. Oh man, oh it's so good.
That sounds
Oh well,
delicious.
I miss my Momo now. Oh, I miss your Momo.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of this pilot series, if you will. I'm sure we're going to be splitting this up into multiple videos because people on Dota Cinema cannot watch a video past 10 minutes, so we're just going to see what I have to do about that. AC, thank you so much for joining us. Where can everybody find you?
You can find me a variety of places. Probably the easiest is on Twitter. It's at Ayesee, at Ayesee. I have a personal streaming page as well on Twitch. In all honesty, it only gets used very intermittently, but I am trying to use it more and more often. And if things go through the way I hope they will in the next few months, I'll be using it a bit more in the future as well. That's just twitch.tv/ACTV. You can also find me on YouTube, I should say, at youtube.com/ACTV. And on Facebook, same thing, just ACTV. Would love to have you as a follower and would love to have you as a part of the viewership. So thanks to you, my friend. And it's always a pleasure to get to talk to you guys and get to catch up with you guys. I don't think there's any question. Some of the most talented folks in the entire community, and just to be featured in the pilot episode of this series is really an honor. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Awesome. Well, with that, guys, that's going to bring us to a close. Thanks to Doomraker for setting all this up. Without him, we couldn't have done this at all. If you have any suggestions, any comments, constructive criticism, for God's sake, people, post them in the comments. I will read on this video. I will not be making my bed. Okay, bye.
Bye.